It's no time to be bashful because I'm getting into those adult cruise tips that you simply don't get anywhere else, and it might get a little bit real. I'm talking about everything from what to know about going bare on your balcony, to bringing drugs on the ship, to even the naughtiest game on the cruise, swimsuits, booze, and so much more. Get ready, let's dive in. Before I get started, just a little note that if you like this video, then I hope that you will subscribe. That said, let's start with a juicy one, and that's what to know about burying it all on your balcony. Sure, not everyone takes their clothes off on the balcony on a cruise, but everyone has at least thought about it. First thing to know is that it is your own space, but it's not completely private. There are barriers between the balconies, but there are also gaps at the floor and dividers that don't go all the way to the top. There are also gaps near the cabin wall where someone could accidentally get a peek even if they weren't really trying to. The biggest thing to watch, however, is that the glass barrier, it can actually be reflective. If someone is next door and sitting at the right angle, they can get an eyeful. So if you do decide to don the birthday suit, step out ahead of time and make sure that your neighbors aren't there. And also bring a towel in case they do decide to come out. But is going nude on the balcony against the rules? At least Royal Caribbean has in their conduct policy that public nudity is not permitted, but then goes on to say that, quote, guests must be appropriately attired, including while on stateroom balconies, if visible to others on board, on other vessels, or ashore. So if you're out in the middle of the ocean, that seems to say that it's perfectly fine as long as others can't see you. If you like to smoke a little something or take a gummy, you wouldn't be the first to think about bringing it onto a cruise ship. Frankly, it's a way for a lot of people to relax these days, and I'm sure the idea of an all-you-can-eat buffet sounds pretty dang good if you happen to get the munchies. Now, we're adults here, so yes, it does make its way onto the ships, but my tip to you is that it's against the rules and cruise lines are cracking down much harder than they used to on this. Cruise lines, they follow federal laws, so even if you're sailing from a state where it's legal, they don't allow the stuff on board. That goes for all the variations too, like CBD or Delta 9 or things like that. There are signs posted clearly before you enter the terminal, and in a newer addition over the past couple of years, at least Carnival, they have drug sniffing dogs that will sniff you and your luggage as you go through security. If it's found, it could be a short end to your vacation. I'd suggest just leaving it at home. Now, whenever I talk about drink packages, I'm usually giving tips on how to decide if they are worth it or not. But what if you want to make the absolute most of the package? In that case, it helps to know the fine print. First, the only cruise lines that put limits on the package are Carnival and Princess. Carnival has a 15 alcoholic drink maximum per day, and Princess has a 15 drink daily max for both alcoholic and non-alcoholic if you purchase their lower tier package. But the upgraded package, it has no limit on either. Other cruise lines, they don't put limits on how many drinks you can have in a day, so that's good to know. Beyond that, however, you want to look into any timing limits. Most packages, they don't let you order multiple drinks at once, but there's a time limit and it's usually pretty short. For instance, Carnival has a 5-minute wait between when you can order drinks. So if you're gonna go hard, you can order one drink, enjoy it for 5 minutes, and then head back to the bar. Or if you want a shot, it's actually a good idea to order the drink first and then order the shot second so that you'll still have something to sip on after you down your shot. If you're an adult taking a cruise, then it may be that you don't want to have your vacation surrounded by a bunch of kids. That's reasonable. So what tips are there to avoid kids on a cruise? Of course, you can sail Virgin Voyages, which is adults only, but everybody knows that. There are two other tips though that I can share. First, scheduling. It will play a huge role in how many kids are on board your ship. Sail when school is in session, especially right after big breaks like Christmas and summer, and there are drastically fewer kids. The other tip works any time of year, and that's simply the more that you spend, the fewer kids that you will see. Spend more for a luxury line, there are going to be fewer kids on board. Pay up for a fancy room in those suites only spots like the Haven on NCL or the MSC Yacht Club, fewer kids. Or spend the money for areas like the Cocoa Beach Club on Coco Cay. Yes, there are going to be fewer kids there as well. Are you interested in hooking up with somebody on your cruise? One tip people may not realize is that the cruise line, it can actually help you. Just about any cruise line you sail will have regular singles meetups scheduled. It's usually in the evening at one of the bars on the ship, and it can be held multiple times during the course of a trip. Typically, they are self-led, meaning there isn't staff there to introduce everyone. Instead, it's just a designated time and place for people that are single to meet up with others if they want to do so. Now, of course, just like on land, just because someone is here, it doesn't mean they're necessarily interested in a hookup. But if you're looking for some company during your cruise, it's really not a bad place to start. Just one word of advice, while there are a lot of people on a cruise, it is still a small space. So if you hook up with someone that you might not want to see for the rest of the trip, that might be hard to do. Let's say you do bring on something that's not allowed by the cruise line. That could be something like drugs or alcohol that's not allowed. Or maybe you bring on something that you'd rather not someone see, like a marital aid or some sort of fancy lingerie. In that case, you need to know the rules surrounding access to your room on the ship. First off, your room steward is going to access the room on a daily basis to tidy things up. They are really the first line of defense if there's something against the rules going on in your cabin. So if you have something that you don't want anyone to see, be sure to put it away before you leave your room, or just don't bring it with you. More importantly, however, while your room is your space during the cruise, it does belong to the cruise line. Look into the agreements with the cruise line that you agree to when you buy your trip, and you'll see that they reserve the right to enter and search staterooms and your bags at their discretion. Now, this isn't some prison, and it's almost surely not going to happen to you. They don't do random searches. But if you have something illegal or dangerous, it is within their rights to go check it out. I talked earlier about going bare on the balcony and the clear language that public nudity, it isn't allowed on cruises. But what about clothing that blurs that line, such as a super revealing swimsuit? The straightforward answer is that pretty much any typical swimsuit is allowed on the cruise ship within reason. As long as you aren't exposing anything with your swimsuit, such as going topless, then it's likely allowed. Of course, there are some swimsuits these days that can blur the lines between showing a little skin and something that's altogether different. For instance, you might be wondering about thong swimsuits. In the case of those, I can say that they are definitely allowed. In fact, you'll see them on just about any cruise that you take to a warm weather destination. What about swimsuits that expose the body when wet, such as something that becomes see-through? Or what about sheer swimsuits that expose parts despite being clothed? Now, that's a specialized case, and frankly, I've never seen this on a cruise. While technically you would be covered up, if the material is or it becomes sheer in water and clearly shows your private parts, that would likely be against the rules on nudity, so you want to leave those at home. Speaking of leaving clothing at home, if you're wanting a truly adult cruise, and I'm talking real adult, then you might not realize there's an entire industry devoted to nude and lifestyle cruises. I'm talking about an entire ship where you can go naked, or it's filled with people who are more, let's just say, adventurous as couples. It sounds wild, but this is a real thing. On the nudist side, there's the Big Nude Boat, which sails annually. You might have heard of it. The company behind it charters an entire ship, and in this case, it's the Norwegian Pearl for 2026, and then that company sells cabins. Now, needless to say, if you're on this trip, then what I said about revealing swimsuits, it doesn't apply anymore. Or if you're part of the lifestyle, meaning the swinging lifestyle or open relationships, there are a couple of companies that charter out ships for this too. Bliss Cruise is a major one and offers several trips a year, including a trip aboard Wonder of the Seas, which is one of the biggest cruise ships in the world. That trip, it will feature clothing optional pool decks, theme nights, and quote, multiple play areas to meet your level of comfort and interest. Hopefully they sanitize the ship before the next cruise. Sometimes when you're in a vacation mood and the drinks are flowing and nobody is around, the idea can come to mind of a little hanky-panky outside of your room. I've personally run into it on a ship with a couple that for some reason thought nobody could see them despite it being a busy pool deck. One tip is to keep it in the room, of course, but it's not just the fact that even when it seems like no one is around, there are still thousands of people around the ship. You never know who is going to come around that corner. But more importantly, if you do something in public, be sure to smile because you will be on camera. There are cameras everywhere in the public spaces on the ship, and once you notice them, you'll see them all over. So unless you like to be watched by the cameras, just keep it in the cabin. If you like to drink, then the duty-free shop on the ship may be like taking a kid to a candy store. Tons of bottles are there offering everything from vodka, tequila, and all sorts of drinks in between. And best of all, it's all offered without taxes, meaning it's dirt cheap, right? Now, I've done some price checking on many items in the ship's duty-free shop, and here is what you want to know. It's not a bad deal, but you also aren't getting a steal. I've actually found that the prices are comparable to what you get back home, at least in my state. The big difference is that the bottles on the ship are slightly larger. So you get 1 liter on the ship for about the same price as 750 milliliters back home. So if you find something that you like to drink on the ship, then take advantage. But if you're thinking that it's going to be some amazing deal that you just can't miss, that's unfortunately not usually the case. Unless you're on Virgin Voyages, the entertainment on the ship, it's actually going to be pretty family friendly. Most shows, they aren't aimed at kids per se, but they aren't exactly adult themed. If you're wanting something a little bit more interesting, then there are some R-rated comedy shows late at night on many ships. But I think the most entertaining show for adults is actually one put on largely by your fellow passengers. Now, you may remember the Newlywed Game on TV where couples answer those personal questions about their relationship. The big cruise lines, they put on their own version of the show, and it might be the funniest entertainment on the ship if you're old enough to appreciate it and you're married. The questions, they range from charming, like where was your first kiss, to funny, like which member of your spouse's family would you least like to be stuck on a deserted island with, to the famous where is the strangest place that you've ever made whoopee. People are surprisingly open in their responses, and it is definitely not something that you want to bring the kids to see. But if you're an adult, it is a can't miss. Thanks for watching, and remember that if you like this video, then I hope you'll subscribe and join the more than 100,000 subscribers to Cruzely. There's also way more information on cruising at Cruzely.com, and until next time, happy sailing.